All right, let's talk about something huge. Have you ever just stopped and wondered, am I really in charge here? Is my life my own story? Or am I just a character in a story that's already been written? Well, today we are jumping headfirst into one of theology's oldest and most mind bending puzzles, this incredible tension between a God who's in control and our own ability to choose.
So let's just put it out there, plain and simple. Who is in charge of your life? I mean, really, are you the author of your own story? Or is it all already written? This is the core question, right? It's the fundamental tension we're going to try to get our heads around today.
Now, your first instinct might be to say, okay, I gotta pick a side here, right? It's either God is in control or we have free will. But here's what's so wild. The Bible, well, it doesn't really give you that option. It consistently says both. It teaches that yes, God is absolutely sovereign, in total control of history, and at the very same time that we humans make real, meaningful choices. So the puzzle isn't about which one is true. The real mystery is, how in the world can they both be true? Okay, so to really understand this, let's take it one piece at a time. First, let's build the case for God's side of the equation. Let's unpack this idea of his absolute, total sovereignty. You see verses like this one from Ephesians all over the place. And I mean, listen to this language. He works out everything in conformity with the purpose of his will. That's not subtle, is it? It paints this picture of a grand cosmic plan where God is the master architect, working out every single detail to fit his purpose. And believe me, this isn't some obscure one-off idea. This theme is woven through the entire biblical story. The point is, God isn't some distant spectator just watching things unfold. Nope. The argument is that he's the ultimate author, the director of reality itself. He knows the end from the very beginning. Nothing, and I mean nothing, happens outside of his plan. His foreknowledge is perfect. It's complete. Okay, so that's a pretty strong case for control, right? But, and this is a huge but, the Bible turns right around and makes an equally powerful case for the other side of the coin. And that's our real, genuine human responsibility to choose. I mean, look at this. You get commands like this one from Deuteronomy scattered all over the place. It's not a suggestion. It's a direct command. Now choose life. And you have to ask yourself, why would God command someone to choose if the choice wasn't actually real? The very fact that the command exists tells you that the choice is meaningful, it's significant, and boy, does it have consequences. And this is absolutely crucial. The whole idea of right and wrong, of justice, of accountability, it all hinges on our choices being real. Just think about it for a second. Why would anyone be told to repent or to believe if they couldn't actually do it? Concepts like sin and obedience, they only make sense if our choices are genuinely our own. Otherwise, the whole system falls apart. So you've got these two massive ideas, right? God's total control and our real choice. And they feel like they're on a collision course. So where do they collide? How do they exist in the same universe? Well, to see it happen, you don't need a whole theology book. You just need one single, incredible verse. Okay, check this out. This is from the book of Acts talking about the crucifixion of Jesus. It says, "This man was handed over to you by God's deliberate plan and foreknowledge, and you, with the help of wicked men, put him to death by nailing him to the cross." Just let that sit for a second. God's plan and your wicked actions. Let's just break that down because it is wild. On one hand, you have by God's deliberate plan and foreknowledge. Crystal clear, this was part of the plan. But in the very same sentence, it says, and you put him to death. It doesn't water it down. It doesn't pick a side. It says God's plan was happening, and you are morally guilty for your evil actions. It's both at the exact same time. That is the paradox in a nutshell. Okay, so if the Bible just holds these two things together, how have people tried to, explain it? How do we wrap our minds around this mystery? Well, over the centuries, theologians have come up with a few frameworks or models to help us think about it. We're going to look at three of the big ones. All right, first up is an idea called secondary causality. Sounds complicated, but the idea is actually pretty straightforward. It says God is the primary cause of everything. He's the ultimate source. But he usually works through what we'd call secondary causes. That could be natural laws like gravity, or, and this is the key part for us, the real free choices that people make. A really helpful way to picture this is the author and character analogy. Think about it. God is the author of a great novel. He determines the entire plot from once upon a time to the end. He's in total control. But when you're reading the book, the story is moved forward by the choices that characters make, right? From their perspective, within the story, their choices are real, and they have real consequences. That's kind of the idea here. Okay, the second one gets a little more brainy. It's called Molinism, and it's built around this concept of God's middle knowledge. So, what's that? The theory goes like this. God knows not just what's possible and not just what will happen, but he also knows what every single person would freely choose to do in any possible situation he could ever create. He knows all the what ifs. So, if that's true, how does God stay in control? Well, according to this view, he uses that middle knowledge to set up the world in just such a way. He orchestrates the circumstances so that our completely free, unforced choices end up accomplishing exactly what he wanted to accomplish all along. And the third framework is maybe the most mind-bending of all. It asks us to completely rethink what we mean by time. The idea is that God doesn't exist on our timeline. He's outside of it. So when we talk about his foreknowledge, it's not like he's peering into the future. For God, our past, our present, and our future are all happening at once, in one eternal now. Here's a great analogy for this one. Imagine you're watching a replay of a football game. You already know who wins. You know the quarterback is about to throw that game-winning touchdown. But does your knowing that force him to throw it? No way. He threw it, freely, during the game, and that's why you know it. Your knowledge doesn't cause the action. The action causes your knowledge. This framework suggests that's how God sees our lives from outside of time. Okay, so we've talked about the paradox and some ways to think about it, but you might be thinking, so what? Why does this even matter? Why doesn't the Bible just, I don't know, pick one and make it easy for us? Well, it turns out this tension is there for a really important, really practical reason. See, when you hold both of these truths together, you get two things that we absolutely need. First, God's sovereignty gives us incredible security. It's the belief that when life is chaotic and makes no sense, there's still a purpose, a plan, a loving God in control. And second, human choice gives us accountability and meaning. It tells us that what we do matters. Our decisions have real weight. Our lives have a genuine purpose. So in the end, maybe the paradox isn't a problem to be solved. Maybe it's a truth to be lived in. It's not a bug, it's a feature. It points us to a God who is big enough to guarantee the final outcome of history, but who is also gracious enough to not turn us into mindless robots. He's a God who invites us to be real actors making real choices in his incredible unfolding story.